Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Live Ones. I am Big Matt, your capper extraordinaire. The big story today, it is the final day of the MLB regular season, kind of, and we'll get to that in a bit. And there is still so much up in the air. Over in the American League, the Tigers and the Royals have both clinched the final two wild card spots, but it's still unclear who's going to be the number 5 seed and who's going to be the number 6 seed. The Tigers play the White Sox today in the last game, who at the very least we know can only set the new bar for worst team of all time at 122 losses in a season. That's as low as they can go. The Royals finish out their season on the road against the Braves today. The Royals are pretty much only in the playoffs because no one else in the American League wanted to be. They were 17 games over 500 on August 27th. They've gone 10 and 18 down the stretch, including two separate 7-game losing streaks. Their only saving grace was that the Twins collapsed even harder than them. They went 12 and 26 the last 6 weeks of the season as ownership inexplicably decided to slash payroll in the middle of the season. Their one trade deadline acquisition was a complete failure, who was released a month later, and they got bit by the injury bug hard. Over in the National League, we have 3 teams competing for the final 2 wild card spots. Right now, it's the Mets and the Braves, who nothing's going to be settled until Monday when they have to play a doubleheader made necessary by rainouts. And the Diamondbacks, who lost 5 out of 6 down the stretch to knock themselves out of a spot. They're on the outside looking in, but they can still sneak in with a win today and losses by both the Mets and the Braves today, plus either the Mets losing one of the games of that doubleheader or the Braves losing both of them. A lot of ways they can get in, but they're not in control of their own destiny. If the Diamondbacks do lose today, then they're out, and the Mets and the Braves are both in. There's already talk among MLB insiders that the league just might cancel the doubleheader on Monday so that everyone's fresh when the postseason starts on Tuesday. You know what? I can't wait. I think we got just about all the right teams in this year. There's only one surefire loser I can pretty safely say isn't making it out of the wild card. Only one team with a bye that I think is a surefire advance to the LCS, no matter who they play. Everybody else, I can see a genuine path to a World Series for them if all the breaks go their way. It's going to be fun to watch as a fan and fun to preview as a capper. We had an absolute thriller of a Week 5 in college football. Just a typical Saturday in this sport. The number 2, number 6, and number 10 teams all lost. Number 7, 9, and 12 all narrowly avoided disaster. Utah got their annual home embarrassment against a lesser conference opponent in Arizona. But you got to give credit to the Wildcats defense, though. That wasn't a choke on the part of Utah. That was just Arizona playing really up to the level of its competition. They stopped Utah on 4 separate 4th down and short situations to end their drives without points. That was absolutely the difference maker in the 23-10 win. For the embarrassment of the week, it's definitely Ole Miss getting utterly humiliated at home by the Kentucky Wildcats in what would be the upset of the year so far, in terms of point spread. But for Notre Dame's loss to Northern Illinois a couple of weeks ago, Notre Dame barely escaped Louisville with a win, and man, what a thriller in Tuscaloosa. I actually stopped watching the game at halftime like most everybody else because it looked like Alabama was going to walk away with a blowout against number 2 Georgia, but Georgia stormed back in the second half, took the lead, looked like they might come out with the best comeback win of the year so far. Alabama at one point had a 28-0 lead. Then 17-year-old Alabama freshman Ryan Williams got an amazing, almost a tip drill pass to himself for a 75-yard go-ahead touchdown that wound up being the game winner. There will absolutely be a shakeup in the rankings this week. UNLV, Indiana, and Rutgers are all undefeated a third of the way through the season. Who thought we'd be able to say that? This is my favorite sport for a reason. We went 2-3 yesterday. Unders do not seem to be the way to go in college football this year. Backing defenses does not seem to be working out very well, and we won't be doing it so much going forward, but we can still finish the 3rd week in a row in positive territory with a good showing today. It's NFL Sunday. Let's get right to it. And we're going to start off at Soldier Field for the Bears and the Rams. I think we have a situation where the wrong team is favored here. The Rams went into last week against the defending NFC champion 49ers, completely depleted by injuries, missing their best 2 wide receivers and half of their starting offensive line, still managed to pull out a come-from-behind victory. The Bears are not the 49ers. Not even close. I am not the least bit impressed with Caleb Williams. I think he clearly has a lot of growing up to do. Needs to learn how to be able to read defensive packages at the line and call protection, especially with how bad an offensive line he's behind. The Bears' offense is 30th overall, dead last in the NFL in yards per play, 31st in running offense, 22nd in passing offense, despite Caleb Williams dropping back an average of 40 times a game, far and away tops in the NFL. Yes, their defense is a beast against the pass. It will likely give Matt Stafford fits all day, especially with him being down so many targets. But they are very vulnerable up the middle, and the Rams have a decent running back in Kyron Williams, who they managed to get going and grind out some key yards against the 49ers last week. I wouldn't hate you if you took Williams' rushing attempt prop at over 18.5 attempts. He had 24 last week. He should be used just as much this week. But overall, the Rams just have way more talent on the field than the Bears. They have a much better quarterback, a much better coach. The Bears' only win came against a terrible Tennessee team that gifted them with a whole bunch of defense and special teams points. They've looked like shit ever since. I'm taking the Rams outright on the money line for the nice plus 135 juice. Eagles and the Bucks. We all overreacted big time to Baker Mayfield's Week 1 performance against the worst pass defense in football in the Washington Commies. Since then, he and the Bucks offense have underwhelmed. They put up 216 total yards against the Lions, only 223 against the terrible Broncos. The Bucks have averaged just 4.2 yards per play over their last 2 games. They're 30th in the league when it comes to the rate at which they reach the red zone or the end zone on a per drive basis. The Eagles are riddled with injuries. They're going to be down their top 2 receiving targets in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Lane Johnson still hasn't cleared concussion protocol and will be out today. There's maybe no one on the Eagles that has been more of a contributor to getting the offense going and running right over the 11 years since he was drafted than Lane Johnson. With the Eagles down so many receivers, expect Saquon Barkley to get the ball a lot and chew up a lot of clock. If the Eagles defense looks even half as good against the Bucks as they did against Derek Carr and the Saints' surprisingly red-hot offense last week, it'll keep the Bucks scoring low as well. I like the under 42.5 points in this game today. And in the game absolutely no one wants to watch today at 4:30, we have the Browns and the Raiders, 2 offenses where all they do is pass, no matter what, and they both fail to get much out of it. I shouldn't put the onus on Gardner Minshew for that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with his reads or his passing, apart from the fact that he just doesn't seem to be able to throw the ball very far. The man drops back an average of 37 times a game and has 28 completions a game. That's fantastic. That's incredible accuracy at the NFL level. 74%? That's awesome. But his average yards per attempt is 6.6 yards. It takes him a very long time to move the ball down the field. All he does is dink and dunk little short passes. And that's a problem, because not only do the Raiders average less than 20 points of scoring a game thus far, but over half of those points have been coming in the fourth quarter, meaning a lot of that scoring has been inflated by garbage time points like last week against Carolina. The Raiders have no run game to speak of, which means this game's all on Minshew's shoulders. The Browns have a pretty decent back seven that's number 1 in the NFL and lowest completion percentage allowed. So that's the Raiders scoring taken care of. What are we looking at on the other side? Fucking Deshaun Watson. The man who will likely go down in history as the single greatest free agency bust of all time, or at least until some other poverty franchise decides they need a mid-tier guy to be their new franchise quarterback. The Browns' offense is 31st in the league overall, 31st in yards per attempt, 30th in passing yards, despite having the second most passed attempts per game behind only Caleb Williams and the Bears. They are 31st in yards per completion, dead last in passing yards per attempt, dead last in sacks allowed, second worst in the league in penalties per game, and an average of a mere 16 points a game. They don't even try to run the ball, which is a shame because Jerome Ford is actually pretty serviceable when he actually gets his hands on the ball. It's the Deshaun Watson show, and the show has entered the Bear Season 3 territory. The total for this game is only 36.5. I think that's still high, where these two offenses are concerned. But if you want to take what the Raiders have done so far this year into consideration, which is not coming alive until late, the play today is on the first half total under 17.5 points. I think this game is going to be such an unwatchable stinker. That's it for me this Sunday. Everybody bet safe, stay safe. Follow us on X at Live One Sports. Check us out on Roku and Fire TV at the Live Ones. Have yourselves a great Sunday, and I will see you soon.